Hey everyone, Pooch from Prusa here. A few months ago, our creator friend Nate from the internet approached us to sponsor one of the most ambitious 3D printing build projects to date.
This is going to be awesome.
The plan is this. Nate is taking this classic Lego castle model here and building it at 20 times the size. After months of planning, designing, testing, and printing, this multi-part series just launched. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to go check out part 1 in Nate's channel, link in the description below. All said and done, this build will require over 1,000 kilograms of filament, 5,000 printed parts, will be over 4 meters tall, and it's gonna take the better part of a year to complete. I sat down with Nate this week to discuss the project and answer some of our community's most pressing questions. This is that interview. Let's get behind the build. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us on this pilot episode of Behind the Build. Today, our very first guest, an honor to have him, Mr. Nate Bonham, aka Nate from the internet. Nate, welcome so much. Would you do us all a favor and take the stage here really quick and tell us who are you, what's your channel, what are you about?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It is great to be here. This seems like it should be a really fun, hopefully, series. You said first episode, so I hope I get to see a lot more of these that aren't me in the future. My channel is called Nate from the Internet. If you've been around YouTube for a while, you may also recognize me. I used to be on a channel called The King of Random, T-Core, whatever you want to call it. It had a few different names that went by, but so Nate from the Internet is my current channel, and I do interesting builds. I do sort of science-related experiments. I wouldn't say they get too scientific, but they're like fun little demos and stuff like that. And in the making things category, I've always had a weirdly high passion for making big versions of things that are normally very small. And I've done a bunch of those throughout the years. And I have just begun by far my biggest big thing project ever.
Fantastic. And this has been a really, really fun project to help be part of. The point of our video here today is to actually kind of get into the weeds a little bit and address some of the questions that I think a lot of the public have had when they've seen part 1 of your video. Obviously, this is geared up to be a decently long series. You are making a massive Lego-inspired castle here. And we can see from behind you the size of these parts. This is a 20:1 scale, right? And so this is going to be a lot of 3D printing. This is going to be a while in the works. So we're only getting started. Let's take a quick look at the short on what this project is about.
I have always loved Lego. And when I was a kid, my favorite was always the castle Lego sets. I really feel like the block nature of Lego pairs up perfectly with the block nature of historical castles. Lego blocks, castle blocks, they just go together so well. And this gave me a great idea. Over the past couple years, I have been getting more and more into 3D printing. As much as I looked around, I couldn't find anyone who had tried to do what I wanted to do. So I knew I wanted to make bricks inspired by the Lego ones, but bigger. So this is the scale I'm going with. This is a 20:1 ratio, meaning that this helmet is 20 times taller, 20 times as deep, and 20 times as wide. I'm looking at printing over 650 Lego style bricks. In the set that I'm trying to build, there are about 70 different pieces. Fortunately, I was able to come up with a system that makes it almost modular. So a lot of the pieces can be built out of the same foundation pieces. It's basically like I'm making Lego style bricks out of different style bricks. There's 44 steps, and I have all the pieces for step 1. Now, this is going to be a long series, many parts, and I hope you're subscribed so you don't miss any of them. Don't worry though, it's not going to be so drawn out as one video per step. It's gonna be more like one video per month. It's still gonna go on for a long time. Now, I don't know exactly what the division of where each video is going to go will land, but I hope you're gonna follow along and see how this project grows, because it's going to grow into something truly massive. I'm so excited for it. Let's get these blocks put together and on the studs.
Fantastic, man! What a project.
There you go.
That's great. I love your energy around it, and I got to just say, on a personal note, I think I've told you this offline before, but I'm fairly certain this is one of the first Lego sets I had as a kid. And next time I go back to my parents, I'm gonna hunt down in the closet and see if I can actually track it down.
You're gonna find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it. It's a classic. I looked it up. It's been out since, I want to say, 1984. It was when it originally released. So this is an oldie but a goodie. Okay, are you ready to field some questions from some of our friends?
Absolutely. That sounds like a great plan. Let's do it.
All right, let's dive in.
Hi Nate, Ruth here with the giant Lego Christmas tree. I am so excited for your giant Lego project. I cannot wait to see it. But I do have a question. Now with the tree, obviously I wanted it to be really stable, and there were bits of the original design that I didn't really like, the mat that it sits on. And so Ellis and I decided that we were going to put a metal pole through the middle of it, which gave it a little bit more stability. Yours is a really big castle. Are you going to be adding anything else for stability?
Great question.
Okay, yeah, okay. Am I adding anything else for stability? Well, first, I do want to give the littlest bit of background. So I had this idea. I said in my first video, I talked about how Matt Denton had a video about a Lego-looking motorbike, electric bike that was actually fully drivable. That was what sparked the whole idea of the giant Lego. And then I had started doing research and just looking into whether or not this was a project I could do, doing some test prints, trying to figure out at the very basic level, could I proceed? And after I had been doing that for, I'd been doing a few months of research, suddenly I saw Ruth's video. I don't remember, I think I saw it on her Instagram first, sending people to her channel.
Right.
And I was like, oh, someone else is actually doing a big Lego thing. That's so fun. And so I went and watched her video, and then she had her friend Ellis who helped her, and I went and watched his video, and it was great to just be like, this is actually like a little proof of concept. Someone else is making this work. It's not just Matt Denton who had it figured out. And so it was really cool to see her project, and her idea of putting the metal structural pole in her tree, I think, was great, because that set is not the most structurally sound. It's a little display piece that goes on a shelf. Right. I don't actually yet know if I'm going to have to add any other supports. This set, you were talking about, this is one of their older castle sets. This is the second full castle set they made. They made their very first one was yellow bricks. Then they had a couple little ones. And then this was their second actual full castle. So it's got some history. But what I mean to say by that is also that they hadn't started getting too adventurous in how the castles were put together. So for the most part, this castle is blocks directly on top of other blocks. That is almost the entire build. Yeah. There's a couple of plates that do a little bit of spanning some spaces, but there's very little weight on top of them unless they're well supported on all four corners. So I am hoping that I won't have to do any additional supports. I don't know for sure if it will end up that way, and it's possible there will be a bridge that needs crossing when I get down the road a bit, but the plan is for nothing other than the printed blocks themselves.
All right, next up is our good friend Uncle Jessy with a question for you.
Hey Nate, Uncle Jessy here. Your 3D printing Lego project is utterly insane. What I want to know is, what are you going to do when you get your Lego bricks stuck together? I know they make a Lego separator tool. Are you planning on printing one of those at 20 times scale as well? Also, for real, if you need any help with that, I'm printing one that is 4 feet long. That is 16.4 times the original size. Yours at 20 times scale would just be absolutely enormous. I have a huge 3D printer. Let me know if you need any help.
Okay, the Lego block separator, that actually is a perfect connection to what I was just saying. As you scale up, the properties of how these bricks interact with each other, I think, is not linear. So I doubt that a scaled up Lego separator would work the same way it does on a small one. But I also don't know that that's true. Maybe it would work pretty well. I do feel like the way my blocks interface with each other, I don't think a sideways pulling twist would work the same with a Lego separator. You really need to go up, like, the thickness of one of these studs, which we're talking almost 2 inches. But I haven't tried it. So, Jessy, if you want to print me a 20x version of that, maybe I'll have a good opportunity to try it out. Maybe I'll need it several times as I'm building this and don't have any other good way to get some of these blocks pulled apart.
If nothing else, it sounds like it'd be an amazing display piece,
It does sound that, yes.
Did you ever see the show Lego Masters? Are you familiar with that?
I don't believe I ever watched. I think it was one of those things that maybe popped up on a streaming service and I saw that it existed, but I don't think I've ever seen any of it.
It's pretty cool. I think they're in 4 or 5 different seasons of it now. But what we have here is a question from one of the stars on the very first season of it, our own Amie Dansby, and she's got a question for you. Here it comes.
Hi Nate, it's Amie from Lego Masters, and I heard you're combining 2 of my favorite things, 3D printing and Lego, which totally speaks to my heart. But I have to know, out of all the sets, why did you pick a gray castle? I just have to know. Patiently waiting.
Okay. Her backdrop definitely does look like she enjoys some good color.
Sure does.
And by backdrop, I mean everything behind her, on the desk, around her, on her head, on her hands. So I don't know this person. She seems to be a very color-loving individual.
Amie is a very prolific maker, and she's involved in a lot of things that are non-Lego associated. She does a lot of electronics wearables, a lot of cosplay work and stuff like that. And if you picked up well, your instincts are good. Pink is absolutely her favorite color, and I suspect she's angling toward. What ideas maybe do you have for making a boring gray castle pop more, if any?
All right. Well, to specifically answer her question about why I chose, I did touch on this earlier. I wanted something castle themed for a couple reasons, and with that little short clip you played, talked about it. I think bricks and bricks, they go together really well. Lego to castle, and so I wanted a castle set for that, and then also just. Castle was always my favorite. I had all sorts of Lego growing up, but Castle was my favorite genre to build in, just because I like the fantasy genre in general. And so I knew I wanted to do Castle, but I had a few stipulations. One, I wanted it to be something that was fairly just iconic, that you would immediately look at it and be like, oh, look, that's a castle. Like, it's a straightforward, yep. And there are a lot of those. There have been many of those sets throughout the years. I did like the idea of doing something early, just because, this is, as far as I can tell, still no one else has ever done this, so I'm doing an early version of this type of project. Let's go for an early set. But also I went with this set because as the sets grew, they went throughout time, they got a lot more complicated. And I wanted to start with something pretty basic. The very first Lego set was all made of yellow bricks. And while that has a great history, I did not want to make a giant yellow castle just for aesthetic. It doesn't look as traditionally castle looking.
Fair enough.
So I went with this one, the second castle. And yes, Amie, I'm sorry, most of it is gray. There's some good amount of black bricks in it, a green base, and the minifigures all over it have lots of different colors. We've got colors popping all over, and then there's some flag decorations. So it is not devoid of color by any means, but maybe it does need a little bit extra. Maybe there are some good decorations I can find to add into it. I'm quite confident there's no pink in the original set, but maybe you've got something you'd like to contribute to add a little bit of flair to it.
Oh, very good idea. You do mention in the first part, by the way, that there are some opportunities for people. Obviously, you're friends with a lot of people. There looks like there's plenty of opportunities for collaboration, but for the general public, even to be involved, if there's a piece that they want to put their name to sponsor the build and stuff like that, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I have been offering on our website, niftystuff.com, NFTI nifty,
Clever.
stuff.com.
I see what you did there.
Thank you. A few different things, and I'll be coming up with more. So the plates that make up the floor, I've got 1,200 of those that need to be printed off. So I have a couple options of putting name, having a plate to yourself with your name, or even getting a logo in color printed onto one of those, or having your name printed into the side of just one of the bricks that the castle will be built out of. Those are the ones I've offered so far. I'm going to be constantly trying to come up with new interesting things that people can get, just so it's not the same boring, maybe something speaks to some people but not to some other people. So yeah, I've had some options so far, and we'll have more going forward.
Cool. All right, next question's from our very own Mr. 3D printing nerd, Joel Telling. Here he comes.
Hey
Nate, Joel, 3D printing nerd. I saw that project you're doing. That's friggin' amazing. As a fan of massive builds myself and big prints, one of the questions that I have for you is something that I have to solve for myself, and here it is. So you're building something massive, and you've put it in a designated space, and I saw it's marked off, and when it's done, where does it go?
Great question.
Oh, yeah, Joel. Great question, Joel. So yes, I am in a space that I am being allowed to use very graciously by the channel Ninja Kids. Cool. They are their own large channel. It's a family that has done, I don't even know how many videos and how many billions of views their channels have at this point. But they had a space that they were willing to let me use, which was very gracious of them. And I was also very thrilled because it's going to be so tall that I was very lucky to find a place that has like 15-foot ceilings to do this in. As for where it will go, that is still up in the air. I do not have a concrete plan of what is going to happen with this whole thing once it's done. I have had multiple people already reach out to me asking about whether they can buy it once it's all complete. And that's likely. It will, at this point, my feeling is that it will likely go to the highest bidder, however that's determined. Because once it's done, I'll be honest, I'm not going to want it. I don't have space for it. I don't want to try and keep it.
I mean, this is the plight of the maker YouTuber, in general, right? Like at some point, if you do this long enough, you just become overwhelmed with the stuff. So Joel obviously is very familiar with this whole process too, and I've been with him as he's given away multiple projects and printers and all these things over the years and stuff. So it's interesting how some of these amazing projects that everybody's like, oh, this is so cool, can, I don't want to say become a burden, but it becomes something that you have to deal with in the course of business as a creator. So I like where your head's at it. I think that it's obviously a very appealing project. It's got a lot of like nostalgia feel, and I can't wait to find who is willing to give this thing a good home in the future.
I mean, and I talked about how this is not my first big thing project. This is my biggest big thing project, but that's something I've been struggling with from the very first project I worked on when I got hired onto the King of Random was copying Mark Rober's giant super soaker build.
Right.
So it was like week one, first thing, I wasn't even on camera yet, but I built a 7-foot long, 4.5 foot tall super soaker. And then I did a bunch of those when I was on that channel. And then on my own channel, I have a roll of bubble gum 2.5 feet wide just sitting in a hall, because where do you put that? I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. Yeah, and so this would not fit in my hallway. I could maybe build new hallways out of it.
You're going to need a bigger hallway, Nate. Yeah.
A way bigger hall.
A foyer.
City hall.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, next question coming from our good friend, Mr. James at the Hacksmith. Here it is.
Hey Nate, loving the giant Lego castle build. I've got an idea. Do you want a metal giant Lego block? Because we just got the Meltio, and I could make a solid steel Lego block. What do you think?
Oh, that is...
Oh, look at that.
Layers.
Oh, look at that. Some teasing. He's already teasing you.
Oh, no.
Okay, so
that's
are you
fantastic.
familiar with what this is? Because this is actually a really big deal. The Meltio is a hardcore industrial metal 3D printing. It uses, For lack of
This is not the metal 3D printing I've seen before.
No, this is a laser welder basically on a robot arm, which affords some interesting possibilities here.
I have only seen laser sintering, the powder metal sintering before.
Yep.
This just appears to be, as you say, just building up right on the build. Okay, wow.
It's wire feeding and then just melting, melt extrusion. There's so many different processes nowadays, but you can see it's actually building a steel Lego block. I mean, are you going to take him up on this? How could you not?
Oh, I want a steel Lego block. I got to pick a good spot somewhere that's going to be like, I don't know, like a foundational cornerstone looking piece or something, because
that's going to weigh something. I have to imagine it would be a cornerstone piece. Yeah, for sure.
And well, he says solid.
There's
Are we
there's
talking
got to be an infill
that thick?
to it
I
still.
assume it's got to be walls with an infill, the same way the plastic pieces are 3D. I hope.
Maybe we'll find out. I guess I have not gotten to really. I've seen them at trade shows, but I've never gotten to get up close. I'm very curious how it would handle some of the things that we traditionally deal with in FDM. Does it do overhangs? Does it do? There must be different production things for this type of tool set.
Well, James, my answer to you is yes, I would love to, and I might have to come check out everything you guys are doing up there at Herc, and we can come up with some fun ideas of how best to use a metal 3D printer in this project.
Oh man, that sounds like
There's a lot
some
of
amazing
options.
foreshadowing right there. All right. Oh, here's someone who's actually pretty close to you. I believe he's also in Utah. Mr. Zack, Jerry Rig Everything with a question.
Hey Nate, Zack here from Jerry Rig Everything. A question I have about 3D printing is that, sometimes when I design something on a computer, it looks great. But as soon as I throw it onto the 3D printer, it comes out slightly wrong. I'm curious how you avoid that situation and how much filament have you wasted with incorrect prints?
Wasted? How much have I wasted with incorrect prints? I am deeply I have a cabinet full of prints that I cannot use on this. Now, it's because I didn't take the advice I'm about to give myself. I would say that what you have to really be sure to do is do test prints. So if you've got a whole design of something, great. And if you send it to the printer, cool. But what if everything isn't just exactly how you thought it was going to be? So I would say you have to take measurements and then just take a little piece of the print, the important part for one little thing. Say you're making a bracket that has to screw into something. Don't print your whole object, just cut off a little slice of just exactly the part with the spacing for the screws or something like that, and just print that. It's only going to take 5 minutes to print. You can check the spacing, and once you know that works, then you move on to printing the whole part. So depending on how many interfacing parts or important bits of the print there are, I would say, you want to digitally cut it up and just print lots of little test pieces before doing a final print. I should have done more of that on some of the things. Sometimes I did think of it and it was great. Sometimes I didn't think of it, and then I would print something for 8 hours and then I'd be like, this doesn't work.
Right.
I should have done more test prints.
That is part of the learning process, and obviously the bigger the project, the more the learning that has to happen. Is it a waste though if it's in the name of actually learning? No, I'd say it's a necessity, right? So but
I would
your point
say
is well
it becomes
taken.
a waste when you already know that you should do that, but then you didn't because of hubris. That's where it turns to waste.
But you've learned and you're getting better, so that's all that matters.
Hopefully.
All right, let's see who we got on deck here after Zack. Oh, our very own Joe Prusa has a question for you.
Woo. Bringing out the
man
big guns.
himself. Are you ready? Let's see. Here we go.
I don't know.
Can you think of a feature for our printers or slicer which would make your life much easier on this project?
Ooh, great question, Joe.
A feature on the printers or the slicer which would make my life easier on this project. Oh my gosh. I've already had the opportunity to move up through the ranks a little bit of some of the Prusa printers. So my first one was a Mark IV,
Right.
Followed by the collection of Mark IV's machines that I've done the bulk of the printing so far, but now I've actually already started to get a few upgraded to the Core 1. And like I've seen noticeable differences in every iteration.
Okay, well let's just dig in on it really quick though, but before you get to the tiny things, like what have you seen actually in just the evolution of those 3 printers that you mentioned that have made things easier?
I think the most immediate one that would stand out to anyone getting into 3D printing is they've just gotten faster. They can print both in terms of how they filament and in terms of how thick of layer lines they can do. Like you've introduced the draft mode, and I think the Core 1 is it the same or a higher draft mode than the 4S?
So there's default presets and stuff. Obviously, all of these machines could theoretically do these different layer heights, but I think as we've introduced stuff, the defaults have gotten different. So I think the draft mode on a Core 1 is like a 0.28 layer height. And we notice you actually get, for a large scale project like this, like that may be sufficient since you're not viewing it right up close anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, the ability for the machine to move in the X, Y, Z coordinates and how fast it can heat and extrude the filament, both of those have improved to a point where I can definitely see a speed difference between my first printer and my third generation of Prusa printer. So yeah, just that's probably the most obvious. I think probably accuracy has been improving as well, but at the scale I'm printing them, all of them have pretty much just been like, oh, it's accurate. It's printed what I sent to it. Yeah. So I think that has probably improved, but I'm not doing the right kind of project to see that improvement.
Yeah, it's,
you might know better than me.
No, it's interesting having seen that you've come in on the slicer side. Like it's newer to you, but like I noticed you were when we were talking offline that you were using the multi build plate feature and stuff like now, and that didn't exist even like a version or two ago. And so
I am loving the multi build plate. That actually does remind me of one of the things that I would enjoy. This is a small feature to me. It doesn't make a big difference, but the multi build plate, it lets you work on 9 machine build plates at the same time. One of these walls here has enough pieces that I need to have 3 separate iterations of Prusa Slicer, each with 9 build plates open on it at once. So I would not be opposed to just infinite build plates. Like as long as you want to keep adding build plates, just keep going. Because I would love a 27 object or a 27 build plate iteration of the slicer.
There you go. So maybe more build plates for even larger projects. All right, next up, you mentioned him earlier at the top of the show. He was partnered with Ruth on the Lego tree build. We have Ellis.
Hey Nate, Ellis here. I have a nice sort of simple social engineering question for you. With a project this big, how do you deal with not really being able to get across the amount of work involved? Or actually more specifically, what's the number one thing you wish you could make people understand in terms of the amount of work involved, but you'll never really truly be able to convey? That's what I want to know. Good luck with the rest of the build, by the way. I think you're slightly mad, in a good way.
Slightly mad in a good way.
You're not wrong.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I do feel like the general public at large is aware of what 3D printing is at this point. I don't think that I can say most people are involved with it by any means, but they know what it is, and so that's a great step. And to say that I'm 3D printing Lego style blocks to build a castle, I feel like it is hard to convey the scale of it. I have a photoshopped image where I took myself and put me into a picture of the castle set that I'm making.
Right.
And that's kind of been my best tool for trying to explain what exactly the insanity I'm getting up to is. Because I could be like, yeah, I'm trying to print out pieces to make something this big. See, there's me.
Yep.
And so I'm gonna it's gonna be like 13 feet tall.
Yeah.
And that is something that sort of helps them get the scale of what I'm doing. But I think only someone who's really deep into the hobby understands just exactly the madness behind the project.
For sure. I remember you sent me, that was one of the first things that you sent to me when we were actually talking about doing this.
It was my pitch for trying to get a company to give me printers so I could actually do this project, and I guess it worked.
And clearly it worked. Well played, sir. Well played.
Good.
All right. Next question coming in. You also mentioned him in your video. He's no stranger to Lego, Mr. Ivan Miranda.
Oh.
Hey, Nate, Ivan Miranda here. I've seen what you are doing, and that's insane. I feel you. But I have a question. Almost everything in your project is going to be static. It's bricks on top of bricks, but there is one part that has to move, the drawbridge. Are you planning on making it a working drawbridge? And if so, are you worried about it fitting in your shop? Because that thing is going to fit tight in there. Good luck, my friend.
Well, if you weren't worried about it, you are now, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, that is going to be a thing. Yeah. So actually, he was off by a little bit. There are two different moving parts on the set. There is the drawbridge, which functions with a hand crank.
Right.
I mean, Lego, it's little hand crank,
yeah.
Which just pulls a piece of string, which lifts the drawbridge up. Scaled up, that hand crank is going to be like a full-size winch, basically, but like a hand. Yeah, hand. It's going to be like big enough to draw water out of a medieval well. I am going to try and see how it works, just unmodified, running it as it is. I have a couple concerns. Will the winch be strong enough? Maybe I'm going to have to get into the extra supports that I was talking about with Ruth's question. Am I going to be able to make it smooth enough? Like I might have to get some bearings integrated into it so it will actually turn nicely. You know, round 3D printed parts grating against each other, not the smoothest.
Right.
And then also I'm concerned about, I'm just going to use some paracord as the rope. That it's about 20 times the size of the little Lego string.
Yeah.
I'm worried that if I let it go up and down a couple times, it's going to start sawing into the Lego bricks. There's going to be so much more friction and weight on it than there is. You know, it's 8,000 times the volume,
right.
And not 8,000, but thousands of times the weight, because I'm making the pieces more hollow than an actual Lego brick. But like, it's going to be a considerable amount of weight. And the other moving part, so there's the drawbridge. There's also the portcullis. That's the grid-looking part that goes up and down, and that one is also on a string. There's no lifting mechanism. You pull that, and then if you release the brick holding on, it just drops.
Sounds a little hazardous.
That I'm concerned about letting that drop. I don't know if I am confident that scaled up that would survive a big drop. But I do think that with the space I have, I don't have to worry about things fitting. I will have some other engineering obstacles to overcome, like I was saying, to make those work in a way that looks like the proper Lego scale.
Right. This is a great example where things don't always just like scale linearly, right? Like just because it's 20 times bigger doesn't mean it's gonna, the forces required may go up. This is where like things like the inverse square law or cube law or whatever play. That's a fantastic question, though. Obviously, you can tell who our engineering-minded friends here are.
And he knows the right kinds of questions to ask because he's already run into a lot of them.
He sure has. And again, it's funny because I get a sense that a lot of our creator friends here are like teasing, like, "Ooh, you know, I might like to help on something like that down the road." Very cool idea. All right, next up, going from Spain over to Germany to our good friend Stefan at CNC Kitchen.
Hey Nate, Stefan from CNC Kitchen here. Man, this is a ton of bricks that you need to print. I was really wondering, did you optimize your printer setup and your printing parameters to make these parts as quickly as possible, but still get good quality and also decent material strength?
That's a good question.
Oh my gosh, I could talk for an hour just about basically this question, and I probably will at some point. I will probably include lots of that information in future videos, and I will likely have an entire video that goes on my Patreon that's just talking about what I've done to optimize printing these bricks out. There's been a ton of different steps that I've done. Several I already talked about. Number one, I'm going to say, so this is Here we go, we got one brick. The fact that every one of these bricks I'm printing upside down, and that the stud actually screws on after the fact. And that is a huge optimization thing that I've done to make it so that, one, so that the bricks can fit, but more importantly, so that I don't have to print any supports. There's no 3D printing supports in making one of these bricks, either on the brick or the stud, and I can do almost the entire castle. There's a couple specialty pieces that do need supports, but almost everything is done without supports. I've played with wall thicknesses, with sizes, with temperatures, so many different variables to try and get a really good result that is as fast to print as possible while still being strong enough to hold itself and the weight of other bricks.
So this is interesting because anytime you get involved with 3D printing, if you've been doing this for any period of time, there's always trying to find the right balance of speed and strength and aesthetic, and it's not always the same for every project, right? So the first step is kind of trying to analyze like what you want to prioritize. Like if that's a triangle, you know, like where do you want to be? Because I don't think you don't get to have it all, right? It's like that good, fast, and cheap pick two maybe.
Yeah, I could make these bricks so strong that like I would be confident that a grown man could jump on them sideways and they would be okay, but it would take me twice as long to print each one. And I've got too many for that. That would double the length of my project. And so, yeah, I have to prioritize speed, but I can't completely give up on the other parts.
Yeah. I have an interesting interlude at this point. Hold on to that brick here a second because it's related to that. I'm going to grab one as well. Obviously, the scale of this is just so fantastic. Like, you know, like we're just playing with these giant blocks here. My question for you, so if you hold that, you're holding what's half of one of these twos, and you talk about in the video the modular design, and I love modular design. So offline, we've done some work together on trying to optimize some different things. One of the things you'll notice though, if you're any fan of Lego, we'll call this maybe the alignment stud for lack of a better term on the bottom. You'll notice there's a little face on only one side of it. Do you know when we were doing some design testing why I did that when I was suggesting?
I think I asked, and I believe your answer had to do with the fact that the machine will actually go faster if it can do one continuous returning loop.
That's right.
Rather than having to take a break and move to a different spot. And so it's a strange looking loop, but if you follow the outside edge, it's going to go out, down, around, and then it's going to come back up, and then it's going to go through all of the little crenellations there, and then again, you just cycle in a circle, in not a circle actually, a broken circle, because that lets it get the inside and outside as a sort of circle.
It's a continuous loop. So it's a speed hack that I've learned over the years from doing print farming and whatnot. And when you're doing stuff like this at scale, where you're printing like all of these little savings add up. So I'll do a little overlay here to show you guys what I'm talking about so you can see the actual tool path. But it's interesting in this case where you're actually using a little bit more plastic, but you're printing faster because the printer doesn't have to stop to travel to another point to do just that stud and then go to the outer wall again. It can do a continuous path and then start at the next level. So it's a little speed hack. And over the course of that
it's absolutely a thing where your experience was helpful, because I never would have thought of doing that.
Right.
Like, it wouldn't have occurred to me to throw that in there. Maybe somewhere in a forum or a video someone would have talked about it, but like the fact that you already were aware of that and were able to share that is such a great advantage.
And I know, so I want to say, don't hold me to it here. I'll pull up the specs and we'll put the actual numbers up. But over the course of doing that brick, I think it saved something like 5 minutes, which, you know, again, aggregated over the totality of the build, that's going to save a decent amount of print time. So, because we've got a ways to go, and we've got questions on that very specific thing coming up. So we won't jump on on other people's. But let's carry back on here. We would be remiss if we didn't include the infamous Mr. Colin Furze here with a quick question for you.
So what's the one thing you didn't expect to be so difficult? A bit like Reba!
Oh, I've been following Colin's build. I've seen like the part of this giant project he's doing right now. He is, he's not kidding about how much rebar. He probably has more rebar in that build than I have plastic coming in this one. All right, the unexpected challenge that I have run into the most so far, that is an ongoing thing I'm working on, is that, look, I think we got these bricks in a great design spot. They work so well. They are strong. Like, I can stand on one of these bricks, no problems. The walls, for the most part, nice and straight. They don't flex. We've solved a lot of problems, and I'm so happy with that. The big struggle so far has been how to get things to stay really nice and straight where they're in contact with the build plate. So this is printing this direction, and for anyone unfamiliar with 3D printing, as this plastic is heated up and oozed out, when it cools down, it shrinks the smallest bit. Like, the plastics have been engineered to not change much. As much as they can, they've eliminated that, but it's not completely gone. And I'm using PLA for the bricks, and with the amount that it shrinks, so on a long straight spot like this, or especially two at a 90-degree angle, these long straight spots shrink just a little bit, and it makes the corners peel up just the tiniest bit, which means if you were to look down this edge just with a straight edge or something on it, you would see that it isn't 100% straight. It curls just a little bit. And that's not a problem that's ruining anything. I do think it will be visible in the lines between bricks as we begin to stack them more. It is currently visible in the corners of these wall pieces here.
Interesting.
I've got close-up shots of those coming in the next video, but so it's not a ruining problem, but it is an unsolved problem that I'm still working to improve. I've come up with improvements. Things are getting better, but that has so far been my biggest struggle that I have not yet solved.
All right, next up, we're going back to Germany. Our good friend Hendrick.
Hi Nate, Hendrick here. I really love your build series, but I got a question for you. Can we electroplate some of your 3D prints at some point?
Ooh, more foreshadowing.
For anyone who doesn't know who Hendrick is, he does electroplating, which is a chemical and electrical process of adding metal onto stuff. And I've done a little bit of it, but he gets the most flawlessly beautiful work on 3D printed stuff that you'd never guess it was 3D printed. It looks like, I don't know, like a fairy just made it appear with magic or something like that. It's just that nice of work. So Hendrick, absolutely, please 3D print something. I gotta say though, if you aren't sure what you want to plate, I have a suggestion.
Ooh, look at that. Look at that. That would be quite possibly one of the biggest electroplates. So I've seen.
Yeah, that would be big. Even for him, that would be large.
Well,
he's done like a helmet.
You're in luck. I did ask him if it was a possibility. He said yes, absolutely it is. So I happen to have one.
That'd be so cool.
I've got one right here as well.
I do. Yep, I've seen that.
A couple notes for you guys, by the way. Nate has been gracious enough to share his model on printables. So the minifigure sword, or S-words, however you want to say it, is available on printables. We'll put a link in the description for that. Also of note, if any of these creators, if you're not familiar, we'll have links to all their channels as well. You can see what we're talking about. This has just been fantastic how much the creator community has come together around your big project here and fed us some questions. I'm just tickled by the whole thing. Okay. Heading to the Netherlands next. This is you're a worldwide phenomenon if you didn't realize it here. This is Jan from Proper Printing. He's Dutch. He's a good dude. Here's his question.
John here from Proper Printing. The project that you're working on is epic. I'm a bit of a Lego fan myself. I have this block. I got this when I was 7 when we went to Denmark to Legoland in Billund.
The original.
This is a big block, but nothing compared to what you're making. And I had to do the calculations, but it will be more than 4 meters tall. So my question to you is, are you brave enough to climb the highest tower?
Oh, he's calling you out right there.
Okay,
4 meters, is that right?
It's 13 feet. Yeah, That's about
12.
it's
Carry
about
the,
four.
what's that in freedom
4
units?
plus meters. Yeah, it's about 12 and a half feet.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah,
and that's not counting like the tops of the flags.
Not counting the flags.
Yeah.
Not the poles and flags will go higher than that.
So
The bricks will go about to 13 feet.
All right, tallest tower.
Yeah.
What do you say?
So I don't know yet. The real question, it's not
Coward.
so much a matter of bravery. It's a matter of what I could be putting my weight on. So the bricks themselves, I am perfectly confident to put my weight on these, even if they were stacked 13 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's the plates that I am not so sure about. And the only place to stand on top of the tall tower is going to be on wider plates. They'd be thinner, and they would be, I don't think even at full screen I can show how wide that plate will be.
Okay, next question. Good question from John. Let's go to the infamous Evan and Katelyn.
So will you be testing how much weight each block can hold?
And if so, are you going to actually climb up in the castle?
Because that'd be cool.
That would be cool. Right? It's a similar question, but
they're not wrong.
No. But Evan's question about the strength of the whole thing too. You mentioned a little bit about standing on it too, but like, have you done any actual testing yet?
I have not. I should do. I've done the testing of standing on a single brick. I have done no testing about how the strength does if it starts spanning gaps, and that is something I should start testing. Like I should see, if I have a 3 brick, so it's like only 1 brick is missing in the middle, can that hold me? If I go to 4, so there's 2, can that hold me? If I'm doing the plates, same thing. Like, can it hold me if I'm, the plates are 1/3 the height, so they have a little bit, they're gonna be more flexible.
Yeah.
I should do some actual testing to see where those limits are and figure out if I should feel safe climbing into the castle.
Moving on next, we got your good buddy Daniel over at the Waterjet channel.
Hey Nate, Daniel from the Waterjet channel here. I have a question about how many parts you're going to be 3D printing. Since you're making it 20 times bigger and you can't fit all the pieces in the 3D printer, how many individual pieces do you have to print out?
Oh,
that's a good question.
That is a good question, and I am not yet complete, or I have not yet completed the spreadsheet that will tell me the answer to that question. So, for example, 1 brick, 2 parts. 4 if you count the fact that every stud is its own separate part. So, the number grows. So this set, the set that I am trying to build, has approximately, I think it's 650 bricks. But most of those bricks are not just a 1x1. There are some. There's quite a few 1x1, and there's even a bunch of 1x1 like round, the little pillar pieces.
Yep.
But most of them are more. And then there's 25 of this wall panel, which is made up of, like, if you count the studs, like 40 total pieces.
Okay, so right there, you're looking at quite a few.
Yeah, hundreds.
20
just for the wall
times
panels.
40, you're looking at like 800. You're almost, the wall panels are probably close to 1,000 pieces of, if you're counting studs and everything like that, huh?
It's getting around that number, yeah. My very, very loose in my head math is around 3,000 parts.
3,000 parts. You mentioned in the first video too.
That's
the
not
floor.
counting the floor, which is 1,200.
The floor itself is 1,200 independent prints.
Make it 4,500 is my rough guess so far.
Wow. Well.
That's not counting studs.
And not counting studs, so potentially pushing 5,000.
Throw another 1,000, 1,500 on there, something like that, probably.
Well, his question's interesting too, and your approach to the whole problem was interesting by going to this modular design, right? So it's like you mentioned, like 1 brick being like a 1x2, and then it's got 2 studs on the top of it. And you talk about in part 1 the fact that even if you could print that at full height, you wouldn't want to because that potentially adds support issues and whatnot. So that you've got a modular approach. I'm loving the idea of the threaded stud thing for multiple reasons, because those now become small enough where you can actually run just studs, like I think 4 up on a plate, so you can like just crank studs, and you can start to divide this into like a manufacturing problem as well. But it is a lot of printing, and you're going to be at it quite a while. Let's move on to our friend Andrew Sink.
Hey Nate, Andrew Sink here, and I am blown away with the level of engineering and the connectors that you built for these Lego pieces. They're so cool. But I had a question for you. I see a lot of lattice structures used in 3D printing for functional parts, like this bike saddle, or for aesthetic parts, like a Voronoi pattern on this sculpture. And I was curious, have you thought about adding a lattice structure to the Lego bricks to make them a bit more lightweight?
I will just say no, I had not thought about putting a lattice structure in. What an interesting idea. Now, obviously, for the visual on most of the bricks, I like the smooth, flat, but I kind of wonder if there's like an interior lattice design that could be used to print faster or lighter and still keep the strength. It sounds like I might need to have a good discussion with Andrew about what could maybe be done in that space. That's new to me.
Yeah. It's interesting. So his company that he's with right now is behind, I don't know if you've seen like the Adidas shoes that have like the 3D printed midsole, where they like have this really wild lattice structure that supposedly helps spring your foot forward while you run, for people that are into such things. They're called the 40 forwards and stuff like that. And then obviously he shows off the bike saddles and stuff like that. The reason I thought this was an interesting question, one, it kind of ties back to what Amie was talking about, where it's like, it seems like it's an interesting opportunity to add some artistic, pimp the brick for, you know, some aesthetic thing. But beyond that, you did mention, and we've been kind of offline trying to work through some of the challenges on getting things to like lay flat and not curl up and all of that. And we've been theorizing around maybe some tweaks to the geometry that could help with preventing that contraction that you seem to especially get with large prints, where you have a 90-degree corner and like the extreme of that contraction pulling and warping and stuff. So who knows, maybe there's some interesting modifications, like you said, on the interior that could help mitigate some of that. I don't know.
I would be very interested to see if there are.
Moving on.
Hey Nate, Kiara's Workshop here. I saw your build, and now I'm wondering, since you're building a giant Lego castle 20 times the normal size, where is your giant Lego catapult to defend it? What happens if you get attacked? But on a serious note, I'm very curious on how strong the whole structure is, especially those green floor pieces. How are you handling like strength? Like, what happens if you walk on those pieces? What's the weight limit? Can you actually walk on the structure, like the walls and the turrets and stuff? What happens if someone shoots a projectile at your walls? Like, just asking. So people need to know.
Lot to unwrap there.
Oh, well, it sounds like Kiara is particularly concerned about siege weaponry.
Right.
Just showing up places. I am hoping no one is going to try and attack my castle.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the case of defensive needs, I think I'm just going to be just relegated to just throwing peeling bricks off the castle and hurling them at the people.
Yeah.
Strength. The floor is walkable in terms of strength. I've made sure that every stud has enough walls and enough infill that I am not nervous about walking on it. I'm totally fine stepping in and going all over it. The bigger danger is like a twisted ankle, because they're just like the right size for your foot to not fit. So you can get your foot partially on and then like a little bit of twist. I've thought about designing myself some shoes specifically made for navigating that floor, like some slippers that I can just put my normal shoes into and like just have. I don't know if that actually be better or worse, but
some Lego walking booties. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it is strong enough. The floor is strong enough to walk on. The bricks are strong enough to stand on, as previously discussed. Walls are unknown at this point how strong they are. I'm very confident they'll hold themselves up. I'm not confident they'll hold people up.
All right, moving to our friend Jay at the Plasma Channel.
Yo, Nate, Jay from Plasma Channel here. Love what you're doing,
What do you think about this? We build a brick full of plasma.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Maybe he's just thinking of something like you could have a brick that like has a power source and just constantly like creates plasma inside.
I don't know what it means, but it sounds amazing.
I want to see one. I would like one. I don't know what it is, but I would like one.
I mean, we've seen the transparent blocks, right? So it's like, maybe he's talking about like, could it contain like what are the like is it a Van de Graaff? What are the globe ones that where you put your hand on it and it just,
Yeah, Van de Graaff generator. The Van de Graaff generator is the kind where there's like the metal ball at the top and the belt that goes.
Right.
Just the plasma ball.
Okay.
I don't
like a plasma globe or something.
Ball.
Yeah,
plasma globe, and you could potentially build one of those into a brick. You might have to have it. I don't know if it works with plastic or if you'd have to have actual glass.
Oh, so maybe there's a glass blowing component. I tell you, who'll know. Jay would know, and he's a master of working with acrylic as well too. So if nothing else, make a display case brick and put a plasma something in there just for
I would like to just talk with Jay about his thoughts about how a plasma.
I want to know what it means. I want to see it. Whatever it takes.
I don't know how it works.
Good question, Jay. Good question. Next, our good friend Bob at I Like to Make Stuff.
Nate, it's Bob from I Like to Make Stuff. Man, your castle set looks awesome. I'm a little biased because I have that set and I love it. I have two questions for you. One, how much is it going to cost for me to have my face on one of those little shields that's on the front of the castle? And number two, have you thought about the horses? Are you going to model the horses?
Oh, good question. Are you going to model horses?
Am I going to model
horses? Look at that, Bob. Look at that. Oh, he's a good boy.
Good boy.
He's a good boy.
Now, as you can see, this is not yet a completed horse, but I have, in fact, modeled the whole horse. This is just a piece. This is half of the horse's head. It needs another mirror image piece of this. And this is actually put together in the same interlocking pattern pieces.
Good question, Bob. You didn't answer though. Like he wants his face on a shield. Is that a sponsorship level? You get a face shield, not a face shield, a shield face. I don't know.
I'll have to get back to Bob on that one. I do think that customizing some shields might be one of the options that's available later on.
I mean, if nothing else, it'd be pretty cool to release it as something to go along. Maybe you get the sword and you can buy a shield to go with it, with a template for putting your own, face on it. I don't know. There's all kinds of fun possibilities there.
There's a lot of ways to do it.
Very cool. This is Mikolas from Prusa. He runs our content creation department. He had a question for you.
Hey Nate, it's Mickey from Prusa. We also like to go quite big, but now I see that for people like you, we probably need to think about putting some limit on the scale function in Prusa Slicer. But I'm curious, what's one thing that you didn't know about 3D printing that you've learned during the project so far? Let me know.
That's a good question.
Oh man. Most of it is the sort of the methods of troubleshooting that we've already been discussing in this. I've definitely learned a lot about how to make things work when they aren't initially working the way you imagined they would. How to go about thinking about those things, and some very specific problems of how to solve. The dovetailing that's based on just like a setting that's in the Prusa Slicer, things like that. So.
Yeah.
A lot of just the thought process and a few very specific tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Is what I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah, and who knows what's still to come, because, as the project continues, like, new needs will breed new knowledge. This one coming from the Pacific Northwest, our good friend Bill Duran at Punish Props has one for you.
Hey Nate. It's your old buddy Bill over at Punished Props, and a little bird told me that you're going to be in the Seattle area soon working on your giant, epic Lego castle. And I figured, why not take the opportunity? Come on, swing by the shop here, and we can get up to some extended Lego prop related shenanigans. It's an open invite. Come on by, bud. Can't wait to make something with you.
His sword is a lot shinier than your sword, Nate.
It is. His is not 3D printed. I remember when he made his video showing how to make that sword. I don't remember it well enough to know if he was specifically going for the 20-to-1 ratio, but it looks remarkably similar in size.
Yeah.
It's really similar.
Yeah.
So I do think he may have slimmed down the handle just a little bit to be a bit more human sized than the giant Lego hand, but it's pretty similar. And yeah, they've definitely got the same vibe going.
It's a good question though. Do you have any plans to like do any more extensive finishing? Because obviously we're kind of doing rough, broad strokes. A lot of opportunity to add some polish.
I think there's a very good chance that there's going to be some fancier finish work on a few select pieces. I'm most of the bricks. The reason I'm using the color plastic I am is because it already looks right.
Yeah.
But I have some thoughts that I might, with maybe a sword, maybe some armor or a helmet, like make myself, some like I can join the Lego guards in this castle, but like have slightly nicer armor than them or something like that. Like in my first video, I talked about one of the reasons that I went with this scale is because it could allow me to wear one of their helmets in a file I found online. And I mean, if that's the reason I went with the scale, I feel like I do have to actually wear one of the helmets and might give myself some other accoutrement while I'm at it.
Well, I sure hope you do, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate with some really incredible talent.
I would love to work with Bill
expertise
on that project. That'd be great.
All right, last creator question coming in from my friend Jake at CAD Class has a CAD-related question for you. Let's see what he says.
Hey Nate, Jake here from CAD Class, and I'm so stoked to hear about your gigantic 3D printed Lego castle as someone who is a big fan of large-scale Lego models. But I had a question about how you get started on these gigantic projects. Are you like me, where you need to make a bunch of chicken scratch notes on legal pads and cocktail napkins, or can you dive straight into the CAD model?
Good question.
Ooh, everything that I have done on this project, I think I have just gone straight to CAD. I'm using Fusion 360 and calipers with the actual bricks next to me to get some measurements. So the bricks themselves are actually not a perfect replica of the Lego ones. They are styled after, but they're not the same thing, and not just with the dovetailing and interlocking features, but the depth of where they go to on the inside is different. The shape of the bumps, I think, is slightly changed, and so they're very reminiscent, especially from the outside. They get less and less like the actual blocks the deeper you dive into them in some parts.
Sure.
And so I have just gone right into CAD for the most part. I'll take the actual Lego brick, do measurements, multiply it by 20, throw it into Fusion, and just design there. I think this type of project is the one where I would just go straight. There are definitely projects where jumping right into Fusion would not be the choice.
Sure.
The very bricky, square, and non-organic nature of what I'm making makes it easier to go straight to CAD than a lot of other projects would be.
All right, a couple questions coming in from your YouTube comments section. First one coming from GlitterLife420. Would it not have been easier or faster switching out to a 0.7 millimeter or larger nozzle? Larger nozzles.
I have been printing everything at the smaller, the 0.4 nozzles that comes on the printers. And it is a good question, and I have done some tests with that. The warping issue that I described, where the corners start to peel up, has become exponentially worse every time I tried to go to a larger nozzle. You have thicker layers of plastic, more heat in them, and a larger amount of plastic to change in volume as it cools down. So with the bigger nozzles, you just get more constriction, more retraction, and just more corner peel. Additionally, you do get a slightly rougher surface, which visually isn't really that much to worry about. I thought it would be. I printed some off. At the distance, if you're more than a couple feet away, can't even tell. But it does make the interlocking function worse. So when you're taking the two bricks and you're putting them together, you know, it's sliding past the layer lines in the way that it's printing, and one of these particular bricks is like has a little bit of weird on it, but
Your
you can already hear that.
There.
That's great noise, isn't it?
Yeah.
It gets a lot worse with the thicker lines. So the sliding stops working very well if you go up in nozzle size, even if they look perfectly dialed in. And it's not an unsolvable problem. I could have toyed with the tolerances more to make them still work, but with that and the corner peel, I just wanted to stick with the size that I was already getting results with that were working for me, and the speed change was a lot less than I expected. It was faster, but not much faster.
Yeah, I think at larger nozzle sizes, what you find is typically with a larger nozzle size, you'll also go to a larger layer height, which is where you get more of your time savings. The ratio of the thickness of the perimeter to the maximum layer height gets bigger when you go to a thicker nozzle. But as you pointed out, the trade-offs might not be worth that.
And there's also the diminishing returns of if you're doing a bigger nozzle, that means you have to melt more plastic at a time, and you can only melt the plastic evenly so quickly.
Right.
And I think that its ability to squeeze plastic out of a small nozzle has already caught up to the speed that it can melt it. So you go to a larger nozzle size, it can't really melt it any faster, so it can't lay it down much faster.
Good point. Again, as you say, not unsolvable, but for the sake of like getting the project going and stuff, it seems like we found that the 0.4 is just better tuned and just allows for more sane default. Good question.
But it is a great question from someone who knows something about what they're asking for sure.
I'm curious why they came up with 0.7 of all things. That's an odd size nozzle size. I've hadn't seen that before.
It is. I've never used that one.
Excuse me.
I tried with some 0.6, and I don't actually think I tried a 0.8, but I did try 0.6.
I did try some 0.8 here, but like you said, the contraction problem seemed to get way worse the thicker the extrusion. Next question goes from John M3E7W. Wants to know why wouldn't you just have it as a big green plate that just snap together all of the pieces instead of like the tiny flat pieces that snap together? So maybe you can elaborate on what he's asking there.
I have to grab a visual aid.
Sure, visual aid. He's just talking about the green floor plate.
This is the floor.
Yep.
And you can see how thin that is.
Right.
That is not 20 times thicker than the actual Lego base. This is closer, although the Lego base plate is thinner than the normal plate. But I believe what he was asking is, why didn't I use these for the floor? Why did I use something this thin? So I do want to keep the look of the 20 times thicker than the actual base plate, which is similar to this. The actual Lego base plate is similar to this thickness. But I did that because I am actually going to be putting a floor underneath these plates. I'm going to be making like a wooden stage underneath it. I didn't show that in the first video. I am putting them directly on the garage floor in the first video, but there is going to be like 1/2 or 3/4 inch wood, some kind of particle board or something underneath this, and that's going to be the actual thickness. I'm going to paint the edges green to match, and so that's going to be like the actual base plate, and that's why I did not print it this size, because making it out of this, I'm just saving a few 100 pounds of green plastic and print time.
Yeah. And then I assume there'll have to be some sort of adhesion process that you still have to determine as well.
Yeah, I'll experiment with, like, I want it to keep them in place, but I also want to be able to remove them if I want. So I'm gonna have to play around with types of glue to see what sort of holds it best.
Cool. All right, next question coming in from probably a parent. We don't know for sure, but probably. You touched upon why it's more economical to print upside down, but it would be fun to know as close to an approximate on average how long it takes to print one of the 1x1 bricks plus a stud and extrapolate out the rough time for printing a castle. I know there's a lot of variables for that size and the shape as you add the details, but for us math nerds and retired engineers and probable parents, it's a lot of fun to guess. That's an interesting question.
Approximate print time for a 1x1 stud. It does change based on how many dovetail sides. So like if it's just square all the way around, that's the fastest. Actually, one side might be the fastest. I'm not entirely sure. 3 sides definitely takes longer. But you're looking at about 6 hours, 6 hours, 20 minutes for one of the faster bricks. And then I don't remember how long it takes to print a single stud because I always print them in batches of 4, and I think it's like 2.5 hours for a batch of 4 of these, something like that.
They're a little less than an hour.
So you're looking at about 40-ish minutes per stud.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I want to say very rough estimate, 7 hours for a 1x1 brick on the castle.
Right.
650 bricks, but each of those bricks can be made up of many different parts. So again, that spreadsheet is still in the works to actually get those calculations, but you know, I said somewhere around 5,000 pieces, but so many of them are quicker. Studs are quicker, floor pieces are quicker. I don't have all the calculations yet, but if you want to run your own math by looking up this set online, about 7 hours for a full brick, about
a 1x1 block,
like 3-ish.
Yeah.
A 1x1 block is about 7 hours. A 1x1 plate, I want to say, is about 3.
It's about a third. A plate is a third of a block, typically.
It's a third of the height, but like the bottom and top take longer, so it's not exactly 1/3 of the print time.
Right. But we're doing
between
back
a
of
third and
napkin
half the
math
print
here.
time.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, what's interesting is I know we're tracking analytics, so it's like it's going to be the number. How much plastic was it? How long did it take? All that stuff. So, still TBD. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of build to still go, but
I can say I took one of these and I put it on the scale, just fully assembled to get the most accurate. And this is 16.35 pounds for one of the walls, including with all of the studs on it. There are going to be 25 of those, so you're looking at just around 400 pounds of
those
wall panels.
Wall panels. Okay, cool. That's a neat stat. Very nice. Next question comes in from Grace Bowler 4380, wondering how solid the prints are. Curious how well a person's weight would be supported. Some more questions about strength. Very impressive so far. Excited for more.
Well, yeah, I think I've already said a couple times that they can definitely take my weight from the top. I don't think I've actually tested standing on one sideways. When I get around to do my strength test, I should definitely do that. I suspect they would be just fine standing on them sideways as well. They are actually printed fairly empty. I'm doing about a 5% infill and only 2 outer walls on everything.
Okay.
So
what kind of infill are you using?
I am doing almost entirely adaptive cubic infill at 5% for the bricks.
Cool.
Which I don't know how they're calculating what the infill percentage is. I swear 5% on adaptive cubic looks like 15 on some of the other ones, but it's strong.
The concept with adaptive is it's adaptive, right? So it's trying to have some intelligence to the geometry and making it thicker in the places that's needed to support it and thinner where it's not as needed, I suppose, but I'm not familiar with what specific algorithm they're using for that.
I actually tried some without infill, and in terms of compression strength, they were still fine, but the walls would warp because there was nothing connecting them together, so they would like bulge out or in, and they were very flexible, and I didn't like that.
Yeah, talking about almost like a vase mode Lego block. That was
pretty close.
That was actually one of the origins of that little extra panel I was talking about, because when you're doing vase mode, you have to have a continuous loop for a vase mode to work.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was actually faster to print that way as well too. So. All right. Next question from Sid Part 2. I enjoyed the breakdown of how the 1x1 brick was made. to create any standard brick, but I was surprised that you didn't show how the more specialized pieces worked. I'm curious about the 1x2 slope, the Technic elements. Hopefully you can demonstrate those in the next part and some of the features on any new elements introduced along the way.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't really get into them. There are, in step 1, in the first video, I got as far as step 1 of the instructions, and there are a couple interesting elements. There's a 1x2, but with one of the bricks is at a 45-degree angle across the face of it. And then I have a 2x1 bricks with a hole through the middle and like one of the little joiner axle pieces that goes in between. Because the whole set, you're actually able to open up the back half of it, and it like butterflies open, so you can, instead of having like a square castle, you have like a really wide castle wall kind of thing. And those didn't get a lot of time. I just didn't fit in with how we were formatting the editing of the video. I do want to put a little bit more time explaining those. For the slope pieces, I just took that I just designed a slope piece, and it dovetails together the exact same way. Had to change up a little bit about where the locking mechanism pieces are, because otherwise they were like sticking up out of the sloped face that would have had holes in there. So I had to design custom pieces, but the theory behind it works the same way, except that I print it vertical instead of up, or I print it right side up instead of upside down, because there's no face on the upside down for it to print on.
Gotcha. There you go. So
there will be more of those special pieces too, and we'll have more time to look at those in future steps, future videos.
So that segues nicely into the next question from Prusa Pooch 42, who would like to know if the hinge pieces that you just mentioned, the aforementioned hinge pieces, will actually be operable. Are you thinking this thing will actually unfold the way the miniature model does?
I want it to have the capability, the theoretical possibility of doing that. Whether or not that function will ever actually get used is questionable, because even in the very large space I'm in, there would not be room to unfold it. So I would have to finish everything here, then transport it somewhere else even bigger, like a full empty warehouse, rebuild the whole thing there, and then use like a forklift or something to pull the part. It's going to weigh a ton.
The mass.
About a literal ton is my very rough estimate for where the weight is going to end up.
Yeah.
And so getting that to move apart would be difficult, but I do understand that sliding something sideways is not the same as lifting it vertically. So I'm going to build the function in as much as I can, and hopefully I'll have an opportunity to use it at some point. I promise nothing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Last question coming in from Sweeter Stuff. I've been wondering since I saw the video, how do you decide the thickness of the plastic? We kind of talked about this, because there has to be some risk versus reward, taking into account saving money on plastic versus print time versus durability. Did you beta test for it? I'm really excited to see how it turns out, as I've always really wanted to build a giant fort out of Lego analogs like this, especially after seeing Half Asleep Chris boxing in Palace built one for his cats. One last question. This is a multi-part question. Do you ever plan on selling these to children's museums or allowing people to tour the finished building? I would buy a ticket.
So step 1, we did kind of address that. A lot of trial and error is how we came up with the wall thickness we did, and we're using a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and we're doing 2 perimeters for all of the walls, and that is strong enough and still fast enough to build. We tried with 1. I'm pretty sure I was able to just like punch my finger right through the walls when I only had 1. If I tried, it didn't just happen, but that was too thin. 2 was good. 3's overkill, takes longer, just doesn't add to it in any meaningful way. Tours, that again, I feel like I would need to find a better place to set it up.
It's all about location.
To do tours. The children's museum thing, I like the idea of that. I am not actually sure how child friendly I think this is. There are a lot of bricks with surprisingly sharp corners, and it takes a decent amount of strength to pull bricks apart after they're put together. There's just a lot of and I think that determined kids throwing these on the ground, you'd start to chip and crack plastic pretty quickly. So I don't know if the way they're being built right now is something that would be very kid interactive friendly, at least not if you gave them free reign. In terms of tours through it, it'd be cool. This is not my property to start charging people to come on to, so I wouldn't feel good about doing it here.
Right. Well, and as you mentioned, like walking on those plates doesn't like it. The studs are huge on this thing, and so it's like you're gonna, it's you would have to modify it at very least to actually like walk through it. Yeah.
It's not a great texture to walk on.
No, and when
you can see, you can't put a whole foot on it. You could easily have gaps in between where you could roll an ankle. You've got your own. You can see it there. Yep.
Yeah. When you see them side by side, they almost feel like closer together than you would expect. Where it's like you would just wedge your foot in between the studs, like trying to walk around in there. So
very possible.
Interesting. Great questions, though. Love to see it.
Absolutely.
Nate, listen, we've covered a lot of ground. You've answered a lot of questions, been very gracious with your time. I appreciate that. Obviously, guys, make sure you're following along, you're subscribed so that you can see as this massive build. I can't say for certain, but it is quite possibly one of the largest printed builds I've seen Prusa be part of. So we are honored to be part of it and really happy to see how this evolves. So make sure that you guys are watching. A lot of these answers will become obvious. We'll see what twists and turns and collaborations take place. And I hope we can have you back, in the future to maybe do a check-in once you're further down the road.
Yeah, and I don't think I've specified, my goal is to put out about one video per month as I progress down this project, and unknown at this point how many months that will be. My guess is around 10. That's the sort of goal I'm shooting for time to completion. We'll see how that goes.
Yes, we will. Just one last thing that reminds me of too, in looking at the instructions, I want to say it's something like 42 steps in the build guide, something like that.
I think 46.
46? Okay, I wanted it to be 42 because I like 42. But 40, so there's 40 something steps. So obviously you're not just doing one step as we go. We're going to have to knock out a bunch of steps at a time.
No, yeah, I'm going to try and do about 5 steps per video, and we'll see if that's something I can keep up with or not.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to it and are happy to assist in whatever way possible as we can. Nate, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you to you and to Prusa in general for all of the massive support without which I could not be doing this project at all. The printers are wonderful and they are literally making this project happen.
Well, we're glad to be part of it. Thank you to everybody who tuned in to this. Stay tuned, and hopefully we'll catch you on another episode of Behind the Build soon. Till then, see you later.